Welcome to the session. Topic of this session is trade reforms and international trade policies of agriculture in developing countries. You are aware that the reforms in marketing and trading system is very important. The production in a country add to the value of the country's production or country's gross output, but the marketing and the trading help us to give access to the country's production, to the country's population. It helps us making available the production of the country to the population in the domestic country as well as the outside country also. We can make available the production in a country to the people of the other country. And the farmers, producers or other manufacturers, they get the prices or we can say the income from the production activity through the marketing and trading activity. So that's why the marketing and trading is always having a important concern to the government. They always want to improve the marketing system or the trading system in a country, so that the farmers, the producers or the manufacturers, they get the good prices or good income out of the production activities. And actually the government is also is having a concern to increase the the competitiveness in the international market, particularly after the globalization or WTO regime. We want to have more of export earning. So they always having a great concerns how we can improve the country's competitiveness in the international market, particularly in the agriculture sector. So basically in this session we will be discussing about the trade reforms or the international trade policies which are adopted by the developing countries like China, Indonesia, Thailand and also the India, and how they have modified their these trade reforms and brought the new international trade policy to increase the competitiveness of a developing country like China, India, Thailand and Indonesia. The globalization or World Trade Organization or the intellectual property right regimes, they have changed the face of the agriculture in almost all the nations. Now agriculture is always in a great talk among the different countries, and they want to increase the competitiveness. Actually, after the globalization, every country want to have the production with a great efficiency. They want to produce the output using less amount of the inputs. So the agricultural predominant economies, they have redesigned their policies, reoriented their agricultural policies, so that the new changes and so that the agriculture sector become competitive in the global market. And the developing country, basically they have changed and reformed their agricultural trade policies or agricultural trade both in the national market and in the international market. And when we talk about the China trade reforms in agriculture in China, the economic reforms in China started in 1978. And that reforms brought rapid economic growth in the China. Before 1979, the Chinese agriculture policy, basically they were aiming that the rural equality should be there in the China's economy. And actually the another purpose of agricultural policy was to provide the cheap food, capital and labor for the industrial development. So their purpose was to give the development in agriculture sector, so that agriculture sector provide the food, capital and labor to the industrial sector also. So, before 1979 there was a tight control on the production, marketing and trade. This control was through the procurement price, and generally they were keeping the procurement price of agriculture commodity below the international prices. And China began implementing the new policies in 1979, and they were having a fear that if there is a poor growth in the agriculture sector, it will retard the industrial growth, and so that's why they realized that we need to promote the agriculture sector growth. So they raised the agriculture procurement prices, and they reopened the rural market for farmers for selling of farm produce. And in 1981, China started decentralization of agriculture production. They have shifted, from the communes to the individual farm household. So individual farm household also allowed to have agriculture production activity. And second phase of reforms, basically, it was aimed at liberalizing the pricing and the market in China. In 1984, there was a bumper crop production in China. The China modified the procurement policy, and the mandatory procurement was replaced with the voluntary contract between the farmers and government. So if the farmers want to supply in the grain to the government, they have the voluntary. If they want, they wish, they can supply. It was not a compulsory thing. In 1993, again further liberalization in the grain market in China, and they abolished the 40 years old grain rationing system, and more than 90% of agri produce was sold at the determined prices in the open market. And in 1997 in China, they have implemented a new policy that is called as 4 separation and 1 perfection. Due to there was inefficiency of the grain bureaus, and there was a lot of financial burden on the government. So they have separated different bureaus who were involved in the procurement of grain from the farmers. So and perfection means basically it was to integrate the government procurement prices with the market prices. So through this policy they brought a kind of integration between the procurement prices and the market prices. In 1998, again there was a decentralized grain management, and the responsibility of the procurement was given to the provincial governments, but the central government again reasserted the monopoly control over the grain procurement. The purpose was to keep the price stable by restraining competition, and basically it deters the improvement in the efficiency of the grain marketing. And China joined the World Trade Organization in the 2001, and after joining the World Trade Organization, there was a tariff cuts, and like in 2001 the 17.9% was the tariff rate, and it was reduced to 15.2% in 2016. And actually China established a tariff rate quota import system for the commodities like the wheat, corn, rice, sugar, cotton and wool. So if they import the predetermined amount of the commodity, there will be zero tariff, or the tariff rate will be less compared to the normal import. And they also reduced the export subsidies and state trading, and they also fixed the size of the domestic agriculture support at the rate of 8.5%. Now we will move to the Indonesia. Trend reforms in agriculture in Indonesia. Since 1985 they are announcing every year the trade deregulation package, and this deregulation package basically includes the reduction in the tariff and non-tariff barrier, and also mentions about the import licensing. And in 1994, in line with the GATT agreements, they targeted to achieve the free and open trade and investment in the Asia Pacific region not later than 2020. And despite ongoing reforms in Indonesia, non-tariff barrier was significant, and purpose was to protect the domestic market from the effective import competition and to benefit the state trading company, state marketing enterprises and designated private company. Later on, they have provided a relaxation on the import licenses for a broad range of products including the processed foods, and about 18% of agriculture is covered by the export control. And the Indonesia, they basically they used increased export restriction, and the purpose was to promoting the conservation of the scarce resources, encouraging greater domestic processing industries for the increasing value added and employment, and preserving the environment. So actually they have restricted the export activity in the country. When we talk about the trend in the Indonesia's trade oriented policies, the recent examples like the bilateral trades continue to grow in Indonesia, and basically Indonesia increasingly adopted trade restrictive measures to fulfill the food self-sufficiency goal in the country, and they have provided some restriction on agriculture import. Because of this restriction, there was a shortage of some commodities like beef and certain fruits and vegetables, and there was a high prices of others such as corn and rice in Indonesia. And they have also introduced an export levy for palm oil exports. Basically, the purpose was to contribute in the bioenergy policy of the Indonesia. And when we talk about the this introducing import restriction on corn, there is aquaculture and livestock sectors is there. These two sectors are growing in the Indonesia, but these two sectors is highly reliant on the important food ingredient, and limited supply of corn have a high impact on the cost of the feed. So domestic corn production is constant, due to the inconsistent seasonal supplies and also poor post-harvest management. And in March 2016, the Indonesian government that the bloc will be the sole importer of the feed corn to limit the import growth and boost domestic production. And because of this restriction, actually there was a high prices of corn in Indonesia, and actually this induced some of the farmers to switch to the corn crop in Indonesia. And then Indonesia also adopted the policy of restricting the rice import. Indonesian regulations restrict the rice import 1 month prior, during and 2 months after the main harvest period. So during this period there will be no import in Indonesia, and they have also restricted that the bloc is only allowed to import the medium quality rice, while the private company they can import the specialty rice like jasmine rice or basmati rice. And such trade barriers together with high domestic rice prices has provided incentive for illegal rice import in Indonesia also. And Indonesia also increased the palm oil export tax and levies, and Indonesia is the largest producer and exporter of the palm oil worldwide, and the palm oil cultivation has also increased significantly in Indonesia, and the government charges an export tax on the crude oil palm in the range of 0% to 22.5% depending upon the international prices. The government introduced a palm oil export levy in mid 2015, and basically this was a mechanism to support the consumption of domestic palm biodiesel in the Indonesia. Now we will move to the reforms in Thailand, and after WTO, the several measures have been adopted in Thailand to support the sustainable agriculture sector, and idea is to provide various environmental and economic benefit to the society, and for that purpose the credit subsidy is provided to the farmers who are practicing the sustainable agriculture. Also, there is a tax reduction on the inputs which are used in the sustainable agriculture, and a community revolving fund also developed to support the growth of the sustainable agriculture in the Thailand. And several reforms were undertaken to create the favorable economic environment for capital formation and farmers' own investment. I know there was a reforms to remove the distortion in incentive for agriculture, terms of trade with the manufacturing sectors, and they have undertaken in Thailand. Various measures have been undertaken to have a external and domestic market reforms, and also they have done rationalization of the domestic tax structure. And the idea was to provide the benefit to the agriculture sector which were similar to the manufacturing sectors. And they have adopted various policy options in agriculture sector in Thailand. The naturally fertile land and incredibly well developed infrastructure, they are the very important initiatives, and in the country ranked among the world leader in the export of the rice, seafood, rubber and sugar. These are the important commodity which are exported from the Thailand, and the Thailand is having the positive trade balance, around 14.73% of GDP in 2000 is having the export share, and it is having significant growth, continuous growth in the export of Thailand. So they have adopted different policies, like there is changes in import tariff on wheat and wheat-based products. Like in case of the wheat, the whole wheat, there is zero import tariff since to September 2007. In case of the wheat flour, 5% import tariff is there, subject to a minimum of 0.5 kg Thai baht, and there is a duty-free import for the members of for the members of Association of Southeast Asian nations, ASEAN, and which are part of the free trade agreement, and also Asian, Australia, New Zealand free trade agreement. There is a duty-free wheat flour import from the Vietnam since the end of 2015. In case of the feed wheat, there is a new import restriction in 2017 in Thailand, and purpose was to protect the domestic corn grower from the cheaper feed substitutes, and they need to have the import permit if they want to have a wheat import for the feed purpose. And in Thailand there is a increasing focus to improve the rice for the export quality, like they are promoting the organic rice such as the high grade Thai jasmine rice and the prestigious Mali varieties, and which are preferred by the Asian and North American consumers. And these two variety commands high prices in the international market. And in 2017 a new programs were launched to promote the organic agriculture, to encourage the shift from commercial variety to the organic strain, and also the farmers who sign up for the scheme can receive financial support to buy the organic seeds, and they have the entitlement for the subsidy if they grow the organic rice. They have also done reforms in the sugar regime. Thailand is the second highest sugar exporter in the world after the Brazil. They have the highly competitive sugar industry due to the low production cost, low transportation cost, and also various support measures provided to the sugarcane farmers. And they are also implementing the price support policy in Thailand. And actually the Brazil, they lodge a complaint with the WTA concerning Thailand support policies, and after that the government of Thailand they submitted that they will eliminate the sugarcane price support programs and domestic sugar price control and sugar sale administration in the Thailand. Now we will move to the trade policy in agriculture in India, and in India several pertinent measures were adopted and they have been implemented in agriculture sectors policy. And objective is to provide the economic incentive to the farming community and the maintaining 4% growth in agriculture sectors. And after the WTO and IPR regime, there is a continuous effort to increase the competitiveness of the agriculture sector in India in the world trade. And basically in India, commodity-wise strategies were adopted, arrangements were made to protect the grower from adverse impact of the undue price fluctuations, and idea is to promote the export, increase the price competitiveness in the international market, also to promote the other aspect of marketing such as quality, health and biosafety, and also there is a specific emphasis on the export of the horticulture produce and marine products in the country. And in India, we followed the strategy of diversification of agriculture produce and value addition, which enables the production system to respond to the external environments and also help us in creating the export demand for the commodity which are produced in the country. And for promotion of the agriculture export, the idea is to create the favorable economic environment and supportive public management system. And also, quarantine system is also developed for the export and import to protect the Indian agriculture from the ingress of the exotic pests and diseases. And India has emerged, significant agri exporter in the few crops like rice, cotton, sugarcane, cashew nut, castor seed, and groundnut. And share of India in world trade is about, in case of the export is 2.27%, and in case of the import it is 1.9% in the year 2017. And agriculture export as a percentage of the agriculture GDP has increased from 8.71% in 2015-16 to 9% in the year 2017-18. And in case of the import, the percentage of the agriculture GDP that has decreased from 5.68% in 2015-16 to the 5.47% in 2017-18. So, India is the net exporter of agriculture produce. And actually, when we talk about the agriculture trade policies, in case of the foreign direct investment in agriculture sectors, 100% foreign direct investment is allowed in development and production of seed and planting material. In case of floriculture, horticulture and cultivation of vegetable and mushroom under controlled conditions. And then in case of the animal husbandry, including the breeding of dogs, of pisciculture, aquaculture, service related to agro and allied sector, there is a 100% FDI, and 100% FDI is also there in plantation sectors like tea, coffee, rubber, cardamom, palm oil, olive tree, etc. And now country has adopted the GST, so there is a single tax on supply of goods and services, and all the central and state tax have been amalgamated into the GST. And in case of the agricultural produce, the rate were fixed in such a manner that there is no inflationary pressure or inflation in agricultural food items. And the India also set up agri cells in 6 countries like UAE, USA, Saudi Arabia, Vietnam, China, and Nepal to strengthen the India's agri export. And in case of the foreign direct investment, slowly India is phasing out the foreign investment promotion board, and now if there is FDI is there from other country, they need to directly contact the ministry, no need to go to this board. And recently several marketing reforms have been brought in agriculture sector in India, like there is an amendment to the Essential Commodity Act 1955 to enable better price realization for farmers. And for this purpose, the Essential Commodity Amendment Bill 2000 2020 brought, and after this bill, the agriculture food stuff including the cereals, edible oils, the oil seeds, pulses, the onion and potatoes will be deregulated, and there will be no stock limit on this commodity in exceptional circumstances like national calamities and the famine with surge in prices, and there is no such stock limit shall be applicable to the processors and value chain participants subject to their installed capacity to exporter also subject to the export demands. And there is another reforms is there in agriculture marketing reform is to provide the marketing choices to the farmers, and for this purpose the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Bill 2020 brought, and aims is to create additional trading opportunities outside the APMC market to help the farmers, and the farmers have adequate choice to sell their produce at a remunerative prices, whether they want to go to the APMC market or whether they want to go for MSP prices or whether they want to go for open market or any other places. They have a full choice, and there is a provision also there to remove the barrier in interstate trade also, and there is a framework is also being developed for e-trading of agriculture produce in the country. And the another important reforms were brought is the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on the Price Assurance and Farmer Service Bill 2020, and this bill basically provide a legal framework to the farmers to enable them to engage with processors, aggregators, large retailers, exporters, etc. in a fair and transparent manner. And this bill provide a risk mitigation for the farmers, and this bill also assure the returns, provide assured returns, and quality standardization shall be the integral part of this framework. And now we can sum up that before the globalization and the developing countries were following the protective policies to enhance agriculture economy, to provide the food security to the local peoples, and basically before the globalization they followed the bilateral trade agreement to have export and import through the tariff and non-tariff measures. After the WTO, the country focuses on developing the infrastructure, providing the support and improve the marketing system so that the production can be done with efficiency, and particular focus was on the cost effectiveness, the production with less cost, and also there is emphasis on the product qualities and safety of the product as per the international standards. With this, I thank you all.